Anemia is one of the common blood disorders. It refers to reduction in red blood cell counts, reduction in hemoglobin counts, and reduction in packed cell volume. Basically, anemia is a condition when the hemoglobin content of the blood is decreased below normal level. Generally, anemia occurs because of decreased production of red blood cell, increased destruction of red blood cell, or excess loss of blood from the body. These incidents are caused either by inherited disorders or by environmental factors such as nutritional problems, infection, and exposure to drugs or toxins. Now let's talk about the classification of anemia. Anemia is classified by two methods. Number one is the morphological classification, and number two is the etiological classification. Now, morphological classification depends upon the size and color of red blood cell. The color is actually determined by the quantity of hemoglobin in the red blood cell. Now, morphologically, anemia is classified into four types. Number one is the normocytic nomochromic anemia. In normocytic nomochromic anemia, the size and hemoglobin content of red blood cells are normal, but the number of red blood cells is actually reduced. Number two is the macrocytic nomochromic anemia. In macrocytic nomochromic anemia, the red blood cells are larger in size with normal hemoglobin content, but the red blood cell count actually decreases. Number three is macrocytic hypochromic anemia. In macrocytic hypochromic anemia, the red blood cells are large in size, but the hemoglobin content in the cell is actually less. Number four is microcytic hypochromic anemia. In microcytic hypochromic anemia, the red blood cells are smaller in size and the hemoglobin content is actually less. Now, on the basis of etiology, anemia is divided into five types. Number one is hemorrhagic anemia. Number two is hemolytic anemia. Number three is nutrition deficiency anemia. Number four is aplastic anemia. Number five is anemia of chronic diseases. Anemia due to hemorrhage is known as hemorrhagic anemia. It occurs both in acute and chronic hemorrhagic conditions. Hemorrhage occurs in conditions like accidents, ulcer, excessive uterine bleeding, purpura, and also in hemophilia. Now, acute hemorrhage refers to sudden loss of a large quantity of blood, as in the case of accidents. Chronic hemorrhage refers to loss of blood by internal or external bleeding over a long period of time. It occurs in conditions like peptic ulcer, purpura, hemophilia, and menorrhagia. Now, due to the continuous loss of blood, a lot of iron is lost from the body, causing iron deficiency. This affects the synthesis of hemoglobin, resulting in less hemoglobin content in the cells. Number two is hemolytic anemia. Hemolysis means the destruction of red blood cells. Hemolytic anemia occurs because of excessive destruction of red blood cells. When the shape of red blood cell is abnormal, red blood cells become more fragile and hemolysis occurs easily. It occurs in two inherited conditions called sickle cell anemia and thalassemia. Now, sickle cell anemia is a congenital anomaly that is found mostly in blacks. It is due to the abnormal hemoglobin called hemoglobin S. In this condition, the alpha chains are normal and the beta chains are abnormal. The molecules of hemoglobin S polymerize into long chains and precipitate inside the cells. Because of this, red blood cells attain sickle shape and become more fragile, leading to hemolysis. Thalassemia is also known as Colles anemia or Mediterranean anemia. This type of anemia is due to inherited anomalies of hemoglobin. We have the alpha thalassemia and the beta thalassemia. Beta thalassemia is very common among these two. In normal hemoglobin, the number of alpha and beta polypeptide chains is equal. In thalassemia, the production of these chains become imbalanced because of defective synthesis of globin genes. This causes the precipitation of the polypeptide chains in the immature red blood cells, leading to disturbance in the process of erythropoiesis. The precipitation also occurs in mature red blood cells, resulting in hemolysis. Now, for nutrition deficient anemia, nutritive substances such as iron, proteins and vitamins like vitamin C, vitamin B12, and folic acid are necessary for erythropoiesis. The deficiency of these substances leads to nutrition deficiency anemia. Now, one example of nutrition deficiency anemia is the iron deficiency anemia. The iron deficiency anemia is the most common type of anemia. It develops due to inadequate availability of iron for hemoglobin synthesis. Now, the red blood cells are microcytic and hypochromic. We also have the protein deficiency anemia. Now, due to deficiency of proteins, the synthesis of hemoglobin is reduced, and the red blood cells are macrocytic and hypochromic. We also have pernicious anemia or Addison's anemia. It is due to the atrophy of the gastric mucosa because of an autoimmune destruction of the beta cells. Now, the gastric hypertrophy results in decreased production of intrinsic factor and poor absorption of vitamin B12, which is a maturation factor for red blood cells. The red blood cells are larger and immature with almost normal hemoglobin contents, so the cells are macrocytic and nomochromic. We have the megaloblastic anemia. Megaloblastic anemia is due to the deficiency of another maturation factor called folic acid. Here, the red blood cells are not matured. The DNA synthesis is also defective, so the nucleus remains immature. The red blood cells are megaloblastic and hypochromic. The features of pernicious anemia appear in megaloblastic anemia also. However, neurological discords may not develop. Now, number 4 is the aplastic anemia. The red bone marrow is reduced and replaced by fatty tissues. Now, this anemia occurs in conditions like repeated exposure to X-rays or gamma ray radiation and by the presence of bacterial toxins. It is common in tuberculosis and viral infections like hepatitis and HIV infections. The cells are actually nomocytic and nomochromic. Now, anemia of chronic diseases is the second common type of anemia. It is characterized by short lifespan of red blood cells that is caused by disturbance in iron metabolism or resistance to erythropoietin action. Anemia develops after a few months of sustained disease. Common causes of this type of anemia are non-infectious inflammatory diseases such as rheumatoid arthritis, chronic infections like tuberculosis, and neoplastic disorders.